is the favorite dunk of every internet skeptic and Muslim apologist. They look at the Trinity and say, 1 + 1 + 1 does not equal 1. And if you just look at the surface, it sounds like they have a point. If the Father is God, and the Son is God, and the Spirit is God, logic says they have to be the same person. And if they aren't the same person, then you have 3 gods. You can't have it both ways. At least, that's what they tell you. But what if the problem is not the Trinity? What if the problem is the specific logic tool that they're using to measure it? Because it turns out, when you actually look at the definitions, the contradiction no longer exists. Critics approach the Trinity with a very specific modern definition of the word is.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
In philosophy, we call this absolute identity. Think of it like an equal sign in math. If I say Superman is Clark Kent, I mean they are the exact same entity. Anything true of Superman must be true of Clark. They are interchangeable. So, the critic sets up the syllogism. The Father is God. The Son is God. Therefore, the Father is the Son? If you agree to their definition of is, you're stuck. You have to admit the Father is the Son, which is heresy. Or, you have to admit you have 3 gods, which is polytheism. But who said we have to use their definition of identity? Who said the 4th century church fathers, the guys speaking ancient Greek, were using a definition of logic invented by European mathematicians in the 19th century? They weren't. This brings us to the actual solution. It's called relative identity. Critics act like identity is just one thing. But philosophers, people like Peter Geach or Dr. Beau Branson, point out that identity is always relative to a sortal. That sounds technical, but it's actually how you talk every day. You cannot just ask, is X the same as Y? That question does not make any sense yet. You have to ask, is X the same what as Y? Think about it like this. If I hold up 2 copies of the same hardcover book, are they the same book? Well, yeah. Same words, same story, same title. But are they the same book in the way that they're the same object? No. One is here, one is there. They are not the same object. So, the formula is not just x equals y. The formula is x is the same f as y, but not the same g. Now, apply that to the Trinity. The Father is the same God in essence as the Son, but the Father is not the same person as the Son. Why does this matter? Because it breaks the logical chain. Usually, logic says if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. But with relative identity, the chain snaps because the category changed. You can share the same essence without being the same person. It's not 1 equals 3. That's just a straw man. It's one nature does not equal 3 persons. The contradiction is gone. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're just making this up to save the doctrine. Actually, no. This is historical. Scholars such as Dr. Beau Branson, he points out something critical about how we argue this. He argues that modern critics use the puzzle approach. They treat the Trinity like a timeless logic puzzle floating in space. They ignore history. They ignore the Greek language. They just play with variables. But if you use the historical approach, if you actually read the guys who wrote the Creed or St. Gregory of Nyssa, They never talked about God using that absolute identity math. For them, the unity of God was not about a mathematical equal sign. It is about the monarchy of the Father. There is one God because there's one source. The Father is the source. The Son and the Spirit flow from Him timelessly. They share the same nature because they share the same source. It's not a math problem, it's a relationship. And this leads to the final point for the three gods objection. Critics will say, okay, fine, maybe they share a nature. But if you have three persons, don't you have three separate gods doing these three separate things? Like three guys building a house. Now, Gregory of Nyssa saw this coming 1600 years ago. He argued for the unity of action, or synergy. He said, every operation of God originates in the Father, proceeds through the Son, and is perfected in the Holy Spirit. It's not three guys doing three separate tasks. It is one movement of divine power. Think of it like speech. You have the speaker, you have the word, and you have the breath carrying the sound. When I speak to you, am I performing three separate actions? No. It is one action involving mind, word, and breath. In the same way, the Trinity acts with one will and one energy. So you never count three gods, because you never see three separate independent actions. You only ever see one divine work. So, let's just be real. The logical problem of the Trinity only works if you force Christians to use a definition of identity that they never agreed to in the first place. It relies on projecting 20th century analytic logic onto 4th century theology. So the next time a critic tells you the Trinity is illogical, ask them, which definition of identity are you using? Absolute or relative? And watch them stumble. Because the only way their argument works is if they force a definition on you that Christianity rejects.